So the first product, understanding that I put out was magnesium in this format, in this delivery system. So it's not a form that matters. It's the delivery system. So the thing that we're up against, and the reason why we haven't become a household brand yet, is even though we do have a clinical trial behind that product now that you tried taken, is that we simply have to re-educate people in exactly what I'm talking to you, which is you have to have a lot of attention span. You have to have a certain awareness generally.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State Podcast. Your host here, Dr. V, triple board certified MD and performance and longevity expert. And on today's podcast, I bring to you a person that I have grown to meet and connect with on the soul level, my good friend Barton Scott. We talk about minerals and mineral deficiencies and his delivery mechanism for really getting you the minerals that you need to perform at your best. This conversation will go into why we need additional minerals and supplementations on top of the food we eat, as well as his special delivery method, which makes some of his products just, in my mind, some of the best that's out there. So I can't wait for you to dive into this conversation. But before we do, let me just welcome everybody into the Thrive State Podcast. This is a place where I have an opportunity to connect with world thought leaders and experts in health, resilience, longevity, relationships, everything to get you into the Thrive State. So if you are new to the podcast, welcome in. Hope you have fun. Hope you're going to learn a lot while you're here. And I have a Thrive State toolkit, journal prompts, resources, worksheets for you to be able to get into your Thrive States. We go into basically how to build habits on each area of your life so that you could be committed to the type of person you want to be. And we also go into the bioenergetic elements, 7 areas of life: sleep, nutrition, movement, our mindset, our emotions, our social connections, and our sense of authenticity and purpose, how each one of those things affect the energetic state in our body, and how to actually make choices that elevate our state rather than pull our state and drive energy towards our survival stress mechanisms. All that in our toolkit that I'm going to give you absolutely free. It actually comes from my Thrive State Accelerator course. You can get this toolkit for free by going to mythrivestate.com/toolkit. For all you who are returning to the podcast, welcome back. Thanks for hanging here with me. Thanks for following. I appreciate the love and energy you are giving to this channel. And if you haven't already done so, we'll super appreciate if you subscribe to this channel right here, engage with our content so it will help the show grow. And if you haven't done so already, please leave us a 5-star review wherever podcasts are heard. This is going to allow us to make additional content as well as bringing awesome guests to you. And now to my guest. It is few and far between that I'm able to connect with somebody that I know at a much deeper level. And I met this very kind-hearted soul, Barton Scott, at a mastermind, and we've been deeply connecting since, and I am so fully supportive of his work and the work he puts out in the world. Our guest today is founder of Upgraded Formulas, Barton Scott, who began his career as a chemical engineer who had really gone through life with a very sharp mind up to a point in life. There was a shift. He began suffering more with extreme levels of brain fog, memory loss, and mental fatigue. And this was something that he noticed when helping his mother as well. So the question is, why was somebody so young going through symptoms of brain fog, memory loss, and mental fatigue? He was only in his mid-20s at the time. And to make matters worse, there was somebody in his life that actually had an aneurysm. That's very preventable. There's nothing worse than watching the people you love get hurt because you couldn't help them. And really, that was the driving force that allowed him to create Upgraded Formulas to what it is today. Unfortunately, he lost that person to that aneurysm, and this loss catapulted him into action. And with so many factors at play, the realization that life didn't go on forever, and the helplessness he felt in dealing with his loved one's health as it started to decline. This led him to go into an extraordinary journey of research and focused attention on determining why people had mineral deficiencies and how that might be one of the causative factors for why people decline in life. It was minerals. What he had stumbled on was the fact that many people were mineral deficient. This is different from vitamin deficiency, but we are also depleted in our minerals. He's went through a lot of tests and was able to discover a test that demonstrated how deficient we were in minerals. And this is something that, some people should know, that you can get a blood test and test nutrients and minerals, but sometimes it doesn't tell you the whole body's store of that mineral or nutrient, because our body will try to keep our blood levels of vitamins and minerals pretty even. So deficiencies could sometimes need to be seen at the tissue level. Without going into the details, this is something you're going to hear about the conversation. Why we are depleted in minerals, where we find actually the whole body. Without going to all the specifics of this conversation, you're going to discover why we are deficient in minerals. Where do we actually find this deficiency? Which lab tests to do? And actually how to start absorbing these minerals in a better place, which is why he founded Upgraded Formulas. You're going to think this conversation is fascinating. So please enjoy this conversation with myself, good friend, Barton Scott.
Barton Scott, welcome to the Thrive State podcast, brother.
Great to be on with you, brother. We've been looking forward to this for a while.
Yeah, ever so often you meet someone, and a lot of these podcast interviews, I don't get to know them, but we've spent, several conferences, getting to know each other. Your energy and the purpose of your work is just so profound and grounded. And I just really, truly appreciate you being a brother, man.
Same here. So that's such a beautiful compliment. Thank you. And yeah, same. If anyone has ever been around you, I think they notice this sort of infectious optimism, this joy for living that you have. And I don't know if it's just because of what you've seen as a doctor or other life experiences, some of which we definitely talked about one-on-one, but whatever it is, it's great, and the world needs more of that.
Well, I appreciate you. There's a part of my show that people are familiar with, and I can't wait to give you this prize, because anybody that wins this part of the game show in the Thrive State podcast gets a healthy meal on me. So it's 5 quick questions, game show style, 1,000 points each. So I'm going to ask you, Barton, are you ready to play to Fight or Thrive?
Let's do it.
Question number 1. What was your favorite childhood memory?
And probably building tree houses. Yeah.
Question number 2. Of all the things that you have to go through being a CEO of a beautiful company, Upgraded Formulas, and I can't wait to dive into that. And thank you for sponsoring the Thrive State Summit. What is one of your favorite ways of getting grounded and centered during a stressful day?
Hands down, the number one thing that I rely on is meditation. I do a specific form called transcendental meditation, which if you've tried meditation and you haven't found your path in it, it's sort of like exercising and not finding your path yet. And someone's like, I don't like exercising because they've only ever tried swimming or something, or they only ever tried running. But then they try some other thing and they realize, oh, I love it, tennis or weightlifting or whatever it is. Transcendental meditation was that for me. And because it's mantra-based, I find it's so much more effective and also easier. And I could talk for a long time about it. So that's, and just like, I noticed that people that I really admired, one thing they had in common, a lot of them, was they had done this specific form where they had gone and learned. So that's what I did, and it's been really profound.
Oh, beautiful. We'll talk about that, grab maybe some resources for people. 2,000 points thus far, doing pretty good. Number 3 is what one quote, book, phrase, thought leader, insight entered your life, and when it did, it just opened up your mind and completely caused a pivot in how you approach life, your career, or relationships, or whatever. Can you?
I think the quote around 2015 or so, which was right around the time I started the company, was this quote by the former British Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli, which was that happiness may not always bring, or action may not always bring us happiness, but there is no happiness without action. And just this idea of that it creates is that, hey, look, I can always do something to improve my solution, and so, or my situation. It's always on me to find that solution. So yeah, being sort of the opposite of victim mindset, it's just being very, very proactive. What can I do before it's, it's not only, or just how do I improve anything? Yeah.
Beautiful. Question
One
number
of many. I don't know. I mean, I spent a long time, and something like 600 books later, from my 20s till now, in my mid to late 30s. So yeah, but that one continually comes up and always has. Yeah.
No, beautiful. It involves a active intention to maybe kind of look into your inner state and allow yourself to do something about it. Question number 4, and I don't know if you're a singer, but I do know you get down because I've seen you at Mind Valley and all these different events that you're at. You're a styling guy, and I know you get down and you dance. But if I were to hand you a mic in front of 100,000 people and ask you to sing a karaoke song, which song would that be?
It would be a Frank Sinatra song, actually.
Ooh,
like,
dude, we need to do a duet. I love Frank Sinatra.
Yes, we do. I love this question. This is so great. So a funny story on this is I was in a biohacking facility, and a friend of mine owns, when I lived in Austin. And this woman who I'd never met, but was really lovely, that worked there, came in, and she just said, hey, I was in the other room, and I just had to tell you that, I used to train singers, and I don't know if you know this, but your voice, you have so much power in your voice. And I thought, wow, this is really confirming. Thank you. And then she didn't just stop there. She said, I'm retired now, but I used to coach some really well-known people, some famous celebrities that are singers, and I would love to just give you a few sessions. I would. And so we did that. I told her, hey, I'll pay you, but that's really great. Yeah, you have my ear. And she said, look, within like a couple sessions, we'll have you covering, so why don't you give me a song or two that you feel like you can do, and we'll refine it. So I knew I could hit certain notes with that song. And then sure enough, within 3 sessions in the studio, she said, okay, you're ready. Let's go do karaoke. And I've done karaoke one time before that, done a lot of public speaking, like,
wow,
just like you all around the world. But singing was just a totally different thing, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, sure enough, it was quite the sort of new rite of passage to like really do that and to do it well, and then to be like really calm with it. It's a different level. And then where it goes from here, I don't know. But there'll probably be some.
Well, what is the name of the song, my friend?
Yeah, the song is Fly Me to the Moon.
I was going to say the same. I was just speaking at the Fontainebleau, Miami, and if you've ever been to that hotel, there's a whole passageway which is just a tribute to Frank Sinatra. So beautiful. 4,000 points. Will you win the free meal on me? Comes down to this question is, what are you most proud?
Wow, that's a great question. That I have it in my nature, or at least seem to have it in my nature, to just constantly look for ways to care for people. If I know something and I know someone needs it, or I think they might need it, I just keep a running list in my head of things that people are struggling with without trying. And every so often, whether it's been a week, a day, a year, I'll send them a podcast that I listened to, or a book that I read, or I learned something from a conversation or a mastermind, or through research of something, a PubMed article, whatever it is. And I'll share it with them, or I'll make an intro or something like that. So I think just always looking out for people. It's something that I feel like it gives me a lot of joy. Yeah.
And I can sense that, because every text message I get from you just feels like it's coming from the heart, coming from the soul. And thank you for recognizing that's what you do for people, because it really lends it's a really common feeling to know that out there in the world, there are people that just got your back. And so thank you for being that.
Man, so kind. Thank you. I've never I had to really pause on that and think about it. But yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
For that opportunity to think deeply on that, since that's a gift.
5,000 points, which means you win the 5 to Thrive, which means next time we meet, meals on me. Now, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I would love to ask you the same question if I
Yeah.
can. Yeah. I wonder how you see yourself in that way.
Thank you. Thanks for that question. What am I most proud? I'm most proud of being able to create an awareness of my constant evolution. There's versions of myself that never felt like I was accepted or that I belonged or that I was enough. And those thoughts that go through my mind, even still on a daily basis, that brings me into states of stress, in states of reaction. I am proud to be able to sit with those emotions now, recognize why I have them, and then be able to choose a version of myself that I know is deeper within, that is already safe, loved, and connected, and gets to show up newly every single day. And so certainly far from perfect, but the ability to be able to just see those things and step into a version of myself that is just not from an egoic space, but from a place of just true self-love and continuously stepping into that space is something that I'm pretty proud of.
Yeah, I see that with you. If anyone's ever seen a clip that you showed me of dancing, I mean, full on dancing in costume on the Mind Valley stage a few years ago, then no one would think like, I don't know if this guy is like really pushing himself to evolve. They would go like, yeah, this is goals, goals.
Well, I appreciate you, brother. Before, we're going to mention this at the end, but I mean, for any of you guys who are just tapping in, make sure you check out Upgraded Formulas. This is a guy, you could just tell from the 5 to Thrive, just the true centered energy and purpose in which he serves the world. And this goes to the mission of why he created Upgraded Formulas. So make sure you check that out. You get a special discount by listening to Thrive Say. We got a special discount code in there. So check that out. And we're going to mention this again, but I wanted to just include that earlier part of the show as well. But before we dive into your work, I just want to congratulate you because since the last time we met, you found love and you're getting engaged, and congratulations, brother.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been the number one sale of my life, as a friend of mine put it in his life. He and I had both done sales back in college, and learned a lot from that too. And we were just joking about that as she sat down next to me at dinner. She had gotten up to go to the bathroom for a moment, and he was asking me, so how did you guys meet? And yeah, thank you. It's been on the quest for the right person for a long time, and it makes a tremendous difference when you feel like when you're naturally a supportive person and you have that love to give, because love wants to flow through us. And when there's someone that either isn't in your life or leaves your life suddenly, and that void is there, I know that side of it too, it can really feel painful because you're used to feeling the love flow through you. Short idea here. I had a real insight from a psychedelic trip I did with mushrooms, I think, which is that we can't actually know. It was a Joe Dispenza workshop that I was at. We can't actually heal, or when we heal, we carry the vibration of healing in ourselves, and we become a conduit of that healing. And that healing passes through us. So the more we're in that state of love or healing someone else, outwardly focused on someone else, more when we're essentially, in essence, saying, clear any blocks, please remove any blocks from me so that I can best serve. Yeah. When we're doing that, we're naturally healed by some force that we've yet to really understand fully, that just seems to pass right through us and into the person that we either have our hands on or have our mind around, helping them solve something.
Well, certainly if we can create that for ourselves, this energy, it leaves somebody who might be in a consciousness state of producing an emotion or a disease that is outwardly not stable. It allows that state not to perpetuate anymore. And it gives them almost sort of a feeling of safety. So that energy can just dissipate and allow for healing in that other person. So beautiful you shared that, man. But let's get into your work. you have a background in chemical engineering, you've been a nutritionist, and of the thousands of supplement companies that are out there, why did you want to get into the game?
I saw that there were thousands of supplement companies out there that, and this is true for any industry, that just wanted to make a buck. And it's different when someone's like installing your AC and that's the focus, versus when you're trusting a company to put things into your body, and let's call it like it is. And I mean, to me, I see great responsibility in that. I think I was attracted to that responsibility, and I was attracted to it largely because in my early 20s, my mom passed, and I was helping her with her health, and we were making some progress. I helped her shed some pounds. I helped her, just do a little better. But the whole time I was resisting the urge that it was maybe a little too late, and that certainly our tools weren't as effective. We didn't have like a metaphor would be a dull scalpel, right? That's like, this is just not adequate, with what I was trying to solve the problem with. So I'd found some of the right ideas, and I realized at some point that if the testing was coming back normal all over the board for someone that you could see their health was going from vivacious and full of life and newly retired in her early 60s at that point, to sort of shell of herself, someone that had a huge vocabulary, that had a great voice, was having her speech slur thanks to the buildup of autoimmune conditions that led to myasthenia gravis, that led to all sorts of different conditions. It was painful to see that degradation, knowing that ultimately it had to be reversible and preventable. And so that, along with my own problems around that age, I'd gone to a doctor that, no fault of his own, I don't blame those doctors or this one, they just weren't trained in any functional health at all, right? Like most are, right? Or aren't. And yet the outcome was that for her, she got on medication she didn't need, that just caused more problems than it helped. And for me, I was looking to focus better. I had I didn't know it at the time, but a lot of mineral deficiencies and nutrient deficiencies. And I was pretty gassed because I had been pushing and achieving and striving since I was like 5. It seemed like I'd wrestled and been one of the top wrestlers in my weight in the country in high school, and played other sports. And by the time I got to college, I was pretty gassed, really. And was thankful that I just, as much as I love those sports, didn't have to do it anymore. Didn't feel like, I think at that time I felt like my self-worth was tied to my achievement, which is common and a really hard trap for any of us to break. Who are you outside of your company, or the things you achieve, or the whatever it is, right? And yet we're all worthy just for breathing, we're all worthy. And so I thought, well, what are my options? I didn't know nearly as much about health and nutrition as I would even in a few years after that, much less now. And the tools weren't really there. Supplements were the new thing that, for the most part, came in, if you remember, around the late 90s, which was when I was a teenager. And because of having to make weight, I was looking at ways to have energy and strength outside of just eating normally. And with that sport, it was interesting because you couldn't just eat whatever you wanted. You had to make weight, just like in boxing or MMA or anything. So it was different than football. It was different than track and things. So with that, I started to really learn more and more and more. And that just elevated and escalated whenever she started to have issues that I could see just weren't going anywhere. Like no one was really able to help her. And, ultimately I was able to help her, but not enough. And in that process, I found something called hair analysis, because I realized that the other testing methods we were trying were resulting in a neutral result that ultimately weren't very actionable. But I started thinking in terms of, as Elon would say, first principles, just an engineering term. And it just means like starting at zero, what do we know to be true? We know that the human body is comprised of elements, and we know those elements are found in a periodic table. I imagine that if, say, a far more intelligent race experienced our planet, like alien culture, they would probably say, so let me get this straight. So you guys do you have a list of things that build your planet? And you're like, yes. And you're like, "Oh, so to what extent do you use that to solve all your health problems?" And that along with vibration. And we'd go, we're working on it, but frankly, for the most part, the majority of us, we really haven't made great advances. And they're like, so what you're saying is you're not really using it. And we go, not really, no. And they'd probably go, "Oof, we have a lot to teach here." So that's basically what I realized, was that there were gaps missing on that test. And when I say we were working with dull scalpels, we were working with supplements that didn't really absorb well enough to reverse those deficiencies.
I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. If you are, I just wanted to let you know, join our community. There's so many free resources and a great community of people that desire health, happiness, human potential, to have more in their life, more health, more energy. And when you have those two things together, you could create more happiness, more abundance, whether it be financial, romantic, all these things in your life. And if you're just starting out, you don't know where to go, just sign up for thrivestatestarter.com, because in there you're going to get a bundle of information that includes a longevity ebook, a longevity and performance resource guide, lecture notes that come from my keynotes at Google, at Fortune 500 companies, all the insights in that keynote in lecture slide form given to you. And then finally, breathwork. I share 3 powerful breathwork exercises to access calm, which really gives you clarity and peace during the day, to access energy if you need to wake up and really motivate yourself, and finally, a breathwork routine that you could do every single morning so that you could be very intentional with how you create that day. You can find all this stuff delivered free to your inbox at thrivestatestarter.com. And our community is growing. If you want to be a part of a community of people that desire the Thrive State, that are really in Thrive State themselves, and help other people along with that, you could be a part of the community. You can get group coaching from me. We do breathwork sessions, meditation sessions, and you also get to drop in and participate in podcasts in the future. You could find more about the community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. So check out those resources. You're not going to be disappointed, and please enjoy the remainder of this podcast.
So that to me was the sign that, okay, I think there's something here. And just having completed organic chemistry 1, 2, physical chemistry, a lot of the hardest chemistries out there, I think it became really clear to me that this solution was right in front of us. We just needed supplements to absorb better. Because after about 1.5 years of trying testing and protocols on me and her, we saw some improvement, but the numbers weren't really moving. And I could see things that now I could point out to and go like, oh, she had heel spurs, and she had what got labeled as osteopenia, osteoporosis. All these things are just mineral deficiency that has been chronic for years and years, because what a lot of people don't know is when we test the blood for mineral deficiencies or nutrient deficiencies in particular, we shouldn't really see much there, because the blood is the last place to show that deficiency, because the body is so intelligent that it knows how urgent and how critical the blood is. So it urgently protects us there by pulling even from bone marrow to establish a great pH in the blood so that organs don't shut down. So as I learned more and more in this area, I just realized, okay, this is the area to focus on. As a chemical engineer, I understand the principles behind solving this, which is creating a different industrial process using nanotechnology equipment and producing an end result, the end product that's much different than the supplements that you see on the shelf today. That became the 10-year journey that we're out here today on.
Well, it's beautiful. And I got to attest, I've tried your magnesium product and just felt that I was getting such better and deep sleep on it. It was amazing. I mean, tried lots of magnesiums before, But what makes it so effective, the magnesium that you guys make?
So if you guys are watching this visually, the size of the particle size that you're trying to absorb normally with supplements is like this big. But your red blood cells are much smaller than that. Let's call it 8 times smaller. And then the particle size that we've engineered by creating a plasma out of the, for example, pure magnesium, pure chromium, and then binding it with something after is 1,000 times smaller than your red blood cell. And then there's a natural proclivity of the body to just absorb that. So what I was doing was looking at how the body absorbs digested food, not undigested food, but food, first of all, not supplements, because that's what we've evolved with over time, right? We've evolved by eating and digesting. And today, there's so many things that get in the way of that, where we're under stress, and that causes leaky gut. We're under the influence of environmental toxins, and that can cause leaky gut. There's evidence of people that are out in the field where planes are spraying essentially Roundup and just glyphosate. And you have people in their 20s, they're developing the big C, and it's just all very reversible or preventable. But first, I think we have to be aware of the toxins and the triggers. But even with that awareness, even with eating organic, which I highly recommend all of us to do, because we're voting with our dollars and we get less and less of these sort of GMO crops that way, less and less of glyphosate crops that glyphosate ends up in our rivers. It ends up everywhere. So it's just the most unkind thing to do to the earth, really. So we have to, long term, we have to restore the soil. Short term, we have to restore ourselves by, I believe, first testing. Otherwise, we really are guessing when we don't know. And it's great to know, like, okay, well, I'm going to take a turmeric supplement for inflammation, but why am I inflamed to begin with? Why? And just pure mineral imbalance will lead to that. A quick flow chart, and then I'll pause, is when you have magnesium loss, just magnesium, you end up with other electrolytes being lost or shedded. Unfortunately, it's a vicious cycle. And then when that happens, then you have overall energy loss. When you have energy loss, the body prunes the cells and what's called cell death. And then we have inflammation, because that's the body's process of cleaning out those cells. That all started with this keystone nutrient getting depleted in the body. So the first product, understanding that I put out, was magnesium in this format, in this delivery system. So it's not a form that matters. It's the delivery system. So the thing that we're up against, and the reason why we haven't become a household brand yet, is even though we do have a clinical trial behind that product now that you tried taking, is that we simply have to re-educate people in exactly what I'm talking to you, which is you have to have a lot of attention span. You have to have a certain awareness generally. And we've done everything we can to make it very affordable. At least that's there. But a lot of people their first question is, what form is it? It's like, well, I could do this with any form with our process. But in this case, we bind it with chloride after the process, which is also kind of confusing, because when you look at the label, it'll say like nanoized magnesium chloride, which is totally different than, say, regular magnesium chloride. So people are like, oh, so I've heard I should take this form or that form. And that's just one mineral. And we do that for like 30 products. So there's a lot of education. And I knew that would be the case. Both of my parents were educators. So I think it was a natural sort of challenge to take on, in addition to everything else.
Yeah. So just to reiterate to the people here, this is really the delivery mechanism that is completely different and revolutionary. It's not necessarily what form of magnesium, but how it's actually created for better absorption that makes this thing really stand out. Now, a couple of things I wanted to pick out and just have people really focus on the points, because many people feel, well, shouldn't our diet have all the nutrients and minerals we need? And certainly when I had a larger scale of concierge patients, I was constantly seeing micronutrient and mineral deficiencies. And can you speak to that? You already have, one being the toxins that our body has to deal with that we never had to deal with before, our lifestyles and the amount of stress and the additional reactive oxygen species our body has to deal with, but also the minerals that we get from our food are just depleted now. Yes.
Right. So I was having a conversation just about a year ago with one of the nutritionists on staff for us that goes over results for people like this. And what Matt was saying was, he said, there's a list internationally, I've heard this a couple times since, where every single day on average, there's 20 new chemicals created. So you have this list of a lot of things that didn't exist even like 10 years ago, much less like 100 years ago. And, when we look at so every day there's 20 more, so that's 600 a month, which is over 6,000 a year. It's 7,200 a year, new chemicals than last year. And I think that probably accelerated during COVID with a lot of antibacterial, this and that for the large part isn't even which is a whole nother thought. And then decreasing like our immune system's ability by trying to completely limit and completely sterilize everything. There's so many viruses on the planet. The fact is like if our immune system's strong, we can handle just about all of them. Yeah, so that's a thought. And then there's, for example, like COVID attacked the cell by not having a metabolism, but overtaking the metabolism of the cells and then robbing the cells, like stealing a car and like running all the gas out of the car. It was similar to what was happening at a cellular level with whether someone got a shot or just had COVID or had shedding. So that, that resulted in iron going through the roof and using up copper and magnesium in the cell, iron becoming unbalanced, the ability to prevent against bacterial and viral infections dropping even more in the process, and then just creating havoc in the body. So all of that really was to some extent preventable. Certainly the people that experienced heart attacks, almost in every case, this was an article in nature.com, which is one of the best sources for actual great research. It showed that at least a third of deaths that were documented resulted from something like iron overabundance, that's how it happened. So that's something that we look at in hair, and something that we actively help people balance. And even my dad, very healthy person, had COVID. And, it took a while for that iron to really build up, but then he had pressure in his chest and he realized he had 3 blockages. Now, he, and like a lot of people, was healthy, exercised a lot. I mean, very, very active, ate pretty well. But what happens is the body actually builds up in the arteries and the blood vessels. When there's inflammation, that's how cholesterol gets deposited. It's a protection mechanism, right? For people that understand that. And I think very few people do. And then you have a little net that goes over that holds that cholesterol in place. And that fibrin hangs out there long enough and then becomes solidified. And then that becomes an issue. And then now the heart has to pump more and more. And then there's excess iron in the blood. So then the body stores that in tissue. And then someone goes in, they do a normal blood test, and they see their iron's it looks low. It's actually high. Because you can actually, fun fact, most people have never heard, you can store, this has been documented for a long time, you can store 10 times the iron that's in your blood and tissue. So you can have a lot more iron in your tissue. And that's a huge problem, because even menstruating women can have high iron, and I believe most do. I believe most of us generally do, just based on how little copper we have in our soil now, how little magnesium we have in our soil. So all of these things are on this balance is really what I'm trying to say. And it's like playing a multi-dimensional piano. You start taking calcium supplements, now suddenly your magnesium's dropping, now suddenly this thing's happening, now your blood sugar's off, now you're craving more sweets. It's crazy how it's all connected, but it is.
Yeah. One of the things that you find, or that I find very unique about your approach, is certainly your testing, that I don't find 99.99% of the supplement companies there that are doing. So, but you could also pick out a few things off the shelf. For example, I think number one, probably most people are magnesium deficient, so they can just come grab it. How do you suggest someone, and can you share the process with the testing and the nutritional support that you give people? And then if somebody wants to just come in and grab stuff off the shelf, how's that approach when somebody comes in to upgrade it for those?
Yeah, sure. So you really have a few different options. You can just come to the website. We're virtual, so everything can ship to you, including testing wherever you are in the world. And yeah, from that place, whether you bought a test or supplements, it ships to you. If you buy a test, then you open the test, you follow the QR instructions. There's a video that pops up, and it's me showing how to take a hair analysis or one of the other different videos we have, and in an actual clinic setting. And yeah, it's really simple. And then your hair sample goes off to the lab. You get your results via email. If you then have your consultation at that point, and that's done with one of our nutritionists. They're specifically trained by me in understanding this, which there's a lot of nuance to hair testing. There's things like hidden copper toxicity that you want to look out for, that it requires a deep knowledge to understand that these things are even available to be seen in hair. So, but hair is tissue, and obviously if someone has very long hair, we're not looking at the tip of their hair. We're looking at hair close to their scalp. I always laugh when I get that question, because you can tell the person hasn't really thought about it. But, invariably, it is a thought early on in the process if they're first thinking about this. Wait a minute, And believe me, that's not how we do it. We want things to be effective. I do this. My whole family does this. All the people I'm close to does this. So regularly, So there's that, and then there's just doing it as often as you can. We recommend 3 months. Now, there's no obligation to do it then, but there is an option to be on subscription and do it that way too. And that really gives you the key relationships in these elements that make up the majority of your entire body, like over 99% of your entire body we look at. And if that's out of balance, your hormones will be out of balance. Because what I love reminding people about, and it's a generous question, thank you, is just that everything that you ever eat is ultimately a collection of the periodic table. It's a collection of elements. So it's, I would say, pretty important that we test for that in the best way. And blood is okay for some things, like downstream things, but deficiencies, for the reason I talked about earlier, you just won't see a deficiency until, I don't want to say till it's too late, but certainly probably a decade or more. You could have caught it just so much sooner by looking at tissue, because tissue is the end result of what blood is trying to do. And yet tissue is where we pull from, or our bodies pull from, when the blood is low, right? In a certain element that is crucial for blood pH to be where it needs to be. Otherwise, like I said, you start to have things like kidney failure, liver failure, and it's just as simple as just chronic instability of nutrients. And yes, like magnesium being a keystone one that is water soluble, you need an influx of magnesium every day, because in addition to so many other things, like over 3,000 now things that we know that magnesium does in the body, which used to be in 1950, we thought it might only be 300. We find that magnesium is also needed to make energy in all the mitochondria and all the cells, which is every cell except a red blood cell in the body. So we're talking about trillions and trillions, literally trillions of cells. So magnesium, copper, oxygen. Yeah, it's really crazy to think that working out very hard, doing breath work even very hard, these things are great for you, and they obviously increase our burn rate. So does stress, by the way.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're just considerations. Unfortunately, somewhat, I don't want to say painful, but if it's the first time you're thinking about these things, it's a lot to consider. So we make it very simple for people to have a path forward, a really clear path forward.
That's beautiful. And I want to just commend you and how simple this process is. And just to recap everything we've talked about today, is minerals run our life. All our body processes require adequate amounts, and we are just minimally deficient in our diets today. And you guys are probably, again, the very few companies that are out there that are actually testing this, and not only provide the nutrients we need, but provide it in such a way in a delivery system that is better absorbs and gets to the cells much better than anything out there I've found in the market. So how do people find out more about you, this testing process, and more about upgraded formulas? Where do they go?
Yeah, really the best place is the website, upgradedformulas.com. That's upgraded with an ED and formulas with an S. And yeah, I think you have a code for them, so that's great too. Just because we can. And yeah, you guys can always follow me on Instagram. Starting a TikTok channel soon. Stay tuned. YouTube. We have some stuff up there. We'll be putting out a lot more content here very soon. I have a team starting there on that side of the business because people need to hear this. And I would say if this is your first time hearing something like this, which was honestly pretty rarely talked about, not only share it, but listen to it again so it really sticks in, because you hear different things. We covered a ton, really, in 45 minutes or so. So, yeah, I hope this was helpful for people.
It has been so helpful, my brother, and can't wait to get this question asked, because you've certainly done so much in life. I've seen you do Joe Dispenza stuff, certainly explored psychedelics, certainly in the supplement world and all these things in the wellness space. But in your life, what has been your best medicine?
Learning to love and accept the world, and learning to love and accept myself.
Okay.
And I would say I was very, very resistant to some of that early, without realizing it. I've always been so pragmatic, like whatever works, And it's like, well, that's what works. Why do you do that? And it takes a lot of different tools. The Transcendental Meditation, we talked about a resource for that, TM, really simple, TM, like tommary.org. Yeah, if we had more people just meditating regularly, using a method, again, like a delivery system, really is how I see it, a delivery system of connecting with this universal consciousness, I say, just frequently connecting with universal consciousness. It's really amazing what you can imagine for yourself and for the world, and just how much stress comes out of your life, how much creativity increases, how much you enjoy life. And enjoying living really is, I think, a real gift that you give other people too.
Beautiful, brother. When you ask me what I find most proud in evolution of myself, what you said right there, learning to love the world and learning to love myself, is part of that awakening process that I'm starting to feel more proud to be experienced. Thank you for that. Brother, it's been a beautiful conversation. I owe you a meal, and thank you again for being on the Thrive State podcast.
Thank you. Such a pleasure. Let's do it again sometime.
Sounds good.
I hope you enjoy that episode of the Thrive State podcast. And if you're finding that this content is really helping you and your family members, please consider supporting our mission and our cause of elevating health, happiness, and human potential for people all over the world. You can do so by making sure that you subscribe to this podcast, sharing it with your friends and family members, and leaving us a 5-star review wherever podcasts are heard. All these things are going to really help elevate the show and to give us the resources to continue to bring more content just like this to yourself as well as the people that you love. If you haven't already, you might want to consider joining our community. We actually have a community where people get to engage with me in group sessions, where we do breathwork, meditation, where we do challenges together, really to be able to get us access to health, happiness, human potential, so that we could have longevity and performance in our life as well. You can check out our community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. And if you haven't already, pick up a copy of my book, Thrive State. It really gives you all the tools, the pillars that you need to create a blueprint to control the energetics of your life. Who are you? How you show up in the world? The choices that you consistently make create an energy in your body, and you can control this. And when you can control that, you also control the messages you give to your DNA that gives you access, again, to optimal health, longevity, and peak performance. And let me also just share a free gift to you. If you haven't already, please pick up my longevity and performance bundle where I share lecture notes, ebooks, breathwork exercises, and longevity and performance resources at thrivestatestarter.com. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. Thank you for helping us grow. Remember always, my friends, that you are your best medicine.